Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 9 of our Enterprise Refit Smoothie build. Sorry I wasn't here last week, we were out of town. I'm going to try to catch up a little bit this week on where we're at. This week I've pretty much got the saucer sealed up. I'm going to show you that here in a minute. And what I'm going to start working on is the connecting dorsal in our Photon launchers, and we're going to see how we're going to light that up and figure out how all this wiring is going to come together. People have different ideas about how they put their models together, especially this model here, which is any of the 1537 Enterprise Refit models. But some people will like to do the secondary hull and then attach the connecting dorsal to that and then connect it to the saucer section. But I prefer to do my dorsal to the saucer first. And get that lined up, which I've got a little trick to how I'm going to do it, or how I typically make sure that it's nice and straight on the saucer section. And then I'll do the build of the secondary hull, and we'll connect that to the dorsal. And then comes the fun part of getting the warp pylons to line up properly. So we're going to look at that when we get to that point. But for now, we're going to focus on trying to finish up this saucer section and getting this neck and the photons and all that wired up, and then we'll move on to the next part. So give me a minute, put you on the bench, we'll get to work. Alright guys, so here's what we got. I've already got my saucer section sealed up. Obviously one of the less popular things with this model is all the work you've got to do to get this seam. If you can see on there, there's quite a bit of overlap where that top part sticks out. So we're going to have to get that sanded down, get all this seams in here filled. And I'm looking at these aftermarket windows I got off Shapeways, and I'm thinking I might have to open those up a little bit. They really look, now that I've got this together, they really look a bit undersized. So I'm going to have to look at that. I may have to take a drill bit and kind of open those up a little bit. They don't seem like they're quite as big as they should be, but we'll take a look at it once I get the saucer section all sanded down. Like I said, there's a lot of overhang on here all the way around that you've got to sand down on this. A lot of spots on here where there's gaps. You've got a section here where it almost looks a little, see if you can make that out, it almost looks, it's a bit warped. Probably going to have to do some serious work to get that to look right, because right now it's low here and then it raises there and then it's low again here, so I got a bit of a hump right here at this light, this nav light up the front, so I'm going to have to work on that. But anybody that's put these models together knows it's one of the things you just got to deal with. Even with this one being an original smoothie, it's the same mold, just without all the fake engraved etched plating on it. So you're going to have the same issues getting this thing together as you would any of the 1537 Enterprise Refit models. So now when I got this together, I'll tell you one thing I ran into an issue with. Unfortunately, this was an easy fix, but you can see I've got my wires for all my lighting, and I've got this shrink wrap tubing, the shrink tubing on here to hold it all together. Well, when I first did this, I had way too many wires running out of this, and it just made it so huge that it was going to be impossible to get it to come down through the neck without blocking any of the windows. So what I had to do was go back and combine the wiring for, wires are the same, all the internal lighting. I really only need this wire for the internal lighting because it's all going to come on at the same time. The only mistake I made with this was when I did my wiring, I accidentally wired in my phaser banks, which I was going to keep those on a separate line, but they're wired in now, so that's just the way they're going to stay, and it's just going to be permanently lit. So I'm not too worried about that. So I got that wire, and I've got all the wires here for the control board for the antenna controls board on here, and I've got them all labeled as to where they connect to. So you're going to make sure you have these labeled That way it makes it easier once you get this together to figure out which wires are going where, because it's really at this point impossible to tell. So anyway, I got a lot of those wires combined down, and now this is what I got. And it's still going to be a little bit of a pain to get it to fit down this connecting dorsal without blocking any windows, but it's definitely going to be a lot easier than it was, because before I actually had this was a lot wider of a shrink tube. You can see here that's what I used. You can get a pack of these from I got these from Harbor Freight for like $1, like $1.50 something or $1.70 something. They weren't expensive at all, so just get you some of that. It'll help hold these wires together. So we got all that done. A couple things we got to look at. Let's set this aside a minute. Doing this connecting dorsal, you see I've already got my LED strips kind of positioned there. I tried moving them around a little bit to see if I could get it to light up evenly. This was the best way I found to get it to light up evenly, is put one on each side in different positions, and that way it reflects off the white painting, the white paint on each side. And we'll get that together. One thing we're going to have to work on, or I'm going to have to figure out here, and I've got an idea of what I want to do, is I want to be able to light up the photon tubes individually, and I want to be able to actuate those by a button. So what I've done here is I've already masked off my part from Shapeways, which is the Photon, a lot more detailed to it. And I've already, so you can see the light through that. And what I'll do is I'll put a red LED bulb. Still deciding whether or not to just use the red LED bulb and do a light box, or do the LED side glow and just kind of run it and attach it to the back here and let that light it up. And that'll, my thought there is that that'll give us a little bit of maybe of a pinpoint in the middle, kind of like a photon's being launched, but it'll also give you a little bit of that lighting around the edges there. So I'm going to try that and just see how it looks, and if I don't like it, I'll just go with putting a LED bulb. But either way, what I'm thinking I'm going to have to do on this, and is we're going to have to partition each side of this photon off if I want to be able to light each of these photons individually. We're going to have to partition that off. So what I'll do is I'll put a piece of sheet styrene, and I'll just attach it right here in the middle, and that'll divide these up. And then also what we're going to have to do is probably put a piece in the back here so that we don't get any light seepage from our internal lighting up those photon tubes, because we don't want that happening. I only want to be able to light it up when I want to, when I push the buttons to fire the photons. So that's what I'm going to work on, and once I get that figured out and get that all set up, we'll come back and we'll see where I'm at. Alright, so I've got this worked out. What I ended up doing was I ended up making the LED with a small little short piece of fiber optic, just like I did with the nav lights with a piece of fiber optic. Once I got my LED together, I went ahead and I hot glued a piece of fiber optic to the end of it, to the end of that red LED. And I did that on both sides, and what you can see is I've actually sectioned off both sides of that, and then what I did was, once I got that into that LED where I wanted it, which was pretty much centered in there, used a little bit of hot glue and glued it in the middle so it would sit right where I need it. And then when I go to stick the my painted piece from Shapeways in there, those LEDs are going to line up right behind where those photon tubes are. So let me light it up and I'll give you an idea what that's going to look like. So we got one there, and then our other one is right there. So I got those lit up. I did a little bit of light blocking around it to help with cutting down on some of the light leak you'll get around this piece when you put it on. So what I'm going to do next is, now that I've got that kind of where I want it, I've got my internal lighting worked out. I've painted this here shrink tubing. I painted it white to help cut down, because when I put this over it, I think the black took away from the lighting a little bit. So I painted this white to kind of help relieve that. And once I get this on there, we'll get this glued together, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you how I'm going to level this out. Kind of what I've done here is I've put some pieces under this just to kind of help level it out, and I've got my small level here, and all I'm doing is making sure I'm level across the back from port to starboard. I'm not worried about forward to back, because that's not going to affect how this lines up, but I want to make sure this is level in the back. That way when I go to put this piece on, I can use the level, and I'll show this when I do it, but I'm going to use the level across the top here, and we'll make sure we get this to where it's nice and straight on the saucer, because one of the issues you have with this model is a lot of times people have a hard time getting it to straighten out on the saucer, and it'll either you have the saucer to the left or the right, or you'll have that same issue when you connect it to the secondary hull on this. So we'll do a similar thing when we get to that point, but for right now I've got this level out, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this glued together around my wiring, and we'll come back, and then we'll look at getting this actually glued down to the saucer itself. So we'll be back here shortly. Alright guys, so I just pulled the clamps off the dorsal connector here, and I'm ready to connect this to the saucer now. Like I talked about, I've got my level here, and just making sure that the saucer is level from side to side. And now that I've got that level, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my glue, and I'm just using, I like to use the Gorilla super glue, the brush and the nozzle. For one thing, it's quick setting, and I don't really want to sit here holding this neck in place for the next 30 minutes or so until I get a good connection on it. So what I'm going to do is, this is one of those spots where if you're going to be stingy with the glue, this is not where you want to do it at. You really want to make sure you use plenty of glue on this section, because this section here is what's going to hold all the weight of your saucer. And if you don't put enough glue on there and get a nice solid connection to it, the saucer is going to end up coming and separating off of this. So don't be too overzealous with the glue, but you definitely want enough on there to ensure that you've got a good solid connection to this. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to check, make sure that's nice and level there. I'm going to take this right about there. And I should have mentioned, if you've been painting or priming these parts, you want to make sure that you, I took some sandpaper and removed, gave it a good sanding where this is going to be contacting the saucer again, because if you don't do that and you don't get a good connection between the saucer and this dorsal connector here, you're going to have a problem later on with that saucer wanting to separate because of the weight. So make sure you sand those areas clear and give a good connection spot, a good surface contact for this glue to connect to, because if it's doing paint to paint, eventually that paint's going to separate and it's going to come off. So sand your contact points down and put your glue on. And let's see if this is going to sit where I need it. Yeah, that looks about right. So should be good there. I'll let that set up. And yeah, Yeah, she looks spot on. Well, I can tell looking at her, so I think we're going to be good there. We'll give that a little bit of time to dry, and what I'm going to be working on from this point is trying to do a little seam work around the edges of the saucer here. You got the seam in the front of the dorsal connector here that you got to work with, as well as on the back side of it. So I'm going to let this glue set up real good, give it a little bit of time to harden and dry. I got some seam filling to do here. And the good thing about getting this connected now is, I don't know where it's at right this second, but I've got one more photo etch part. And by getting this connected now, that's going to let me do this photo etch part, which is your impulse vents that go on each side of the dorsal connector here. And I can get that on, and then what that's going to let me do then is fill in this back part here underneath the impulse deck, so we can get that all filled in and puttied up and sand it down to get it looking like it's supposed to. And after that, we're moving on to the secondary hole, and we're going to get that, start working on that now. So that's pretty much it for this episode. We've got the saucer done, our interconnecting dorsals done. Just need to do some sanding, a little more paint to it. I do have to work on our upper and lower sensor arrays. Well, the lower sensor array and the bridge, which I did go ahead and bolster the height off the deck. Because if you don't, it sits really low with these models. So what I did for that was I just took a piece of sheet styrene, and I only keep the one piece of sheet styrene because what I do is if I need thicker, typically what I do is I just sandwich or laminate if you want to call it that, but I sandwich these together with super glue, and that's what I did with this. I just took two pieces of that, sandwiched it together, and that raised the deck height a little bit on that bridge. So got a little more work to do on sanding that, so I'll be working on that as well. Then I got to work on the lower sensor right here and get that done. So when we come back next week, hopefully I'll be pretty close to having this saucer section sanded and filled, having the bridge done as well as the lower sensor array done, and have this connecting dorsal with the photo etch parts done. That way this will be mostly done, and we can move on to our secondary hole at that point. Start getting this done. Put our strong backs on here, and I do have that piece from Shapeways for the botanical gardens I got to get done with and put that in there, and then we can start lighting this up and hopefully finish up our antenna controls wiring. Still got a lot of wiring to do there. So, but till then, if you like anything you see here, or you find any of the information useful, please hit that like button below. Also, if you want to get the updates automatic, subscribe. And also, I just set up today, I'm going to be posting some additional pics and information when I do these builds to my Facebook page. I now have a Facebook page. You can find that by going to Facebook and just searching for at Ensign's Chair. So until then, we'll catch you next time.